We did get news. Well, originally we had a report that Avowed was going to be delayed. At least that was the talk going on. And then Microsoft came out through their Xbox account and they said, so many games are coming. As such, we've moved Avowed to February 18th, 2025 to give players backlog some breathing room. And they say to stay tuned for all kinds of announcements across Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, Xbox Game Studios at Gamescom, including their August 23rd live stream for a look at Avowed. Now, in this image, they show off all the games coming up, which includes, well, now obviously includes World of Warcraft, Age of Mythology, Aura, Diablo 4, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Flight Simulator 2024, Indiana Jones still 2024, Starfield Shattered Space also 2024, Towerborn, same thing. And then we get into 2025, starting with Avowed. So people were kind of going back and forth on if this was a good move or if this is the right move even. But Avowed no longer in 2024. I still think it looked kind of sketchy at times in their showing for it. So maybe not a bad thing for more development, but interesting that they feel the need to move it because there are just apparently too many games coming out in the next 4 months.
It's bullshit. And I mean, it's simple as that. Like half the stuff on that list is fucking DLC for pre-existing games. Microsoft does not deserve a benefit of the doubt after the situation they pulled with. All of these games are coming out within 12 months, showing Redfall, Forza, and Starfield, and only one of those games came out within 12 months, and it probably shouldn't have because it wasn't done. Like, it's okay if you're delaying the game because it needs more polish or something like that, but to frame it that way is ridiculous. And the fact that people just eat that up is bizarre to me. They're just like, oh, well, I got too much stuff to play. It's like, even if you take into account all of those games on that list, what game on that list is anywhere close to what Avowed is going to offer you? What does it matter anyways? You're not selling these games. You're pushing Game Pass. Like, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I actually agree with Sean 100%. I know we've talked about this offline. I kind of wish Nate was here so we could debate this a little bit, but I totally agree. I think Avowed, dude, every time I've seen Avowed at the Developer Direct, when they showed, I was like, this game isn't coming out this year. It's not ready yet. It still needs more time. And when they didn't commit to a date and then they kind of gave a date and then they kind of walked it back and then they finally gave a date, if you remember, I was like, what the fuck is going on with this game? Like, they don't even know what they're doing. Like, they can't commit to a timeline with this game. So I've always felt like Avowed was a 2025 release, and that's okay. But just don't bullshit people, right? The thing is, it's very hard for me to put my trust into Xbox right now because they've said so many things that have just not happened. And they've basically said a lot of things that are just dishonest. And I feel like this, even though it's, they're saying, look, we're pushing it for marketing reasons. Look, okay, there's probably some truth to that, but it doesn't discount the fact that I think the game is still not done. It still needs more time in the oven to get polished up and to be a much better experience, because I think anyone that saw gameplay footage of Avowed at the Developer Direct, everyone walked away thinking to themselves, the game looks interesting. I probably want to play it, but there's just something off about it. Like, there's just, it still needs more work, right? So I agree with Sean. I think it's just a convenient excuse for them to push the game into next year because ultimately it's not ready yet. And I think they need more time, which is okay. But just be honest with people and just say, we need more time, so we're bumping it, because we can. And they are in a very fortunate situation where they can push a game like Avowed to next year because they've got some big games coming out at the end of this year. So they have the luxury to do it. But don't bullshit people. Just be honest with people and let people know what's going on with this game.
So I think Nate had brought up, because the idea of Stalker 2 getting pushed maybe threw a monkey wrench in their plans there. They're like, oh, how are we going to fit in this game now? Because we had originally Stalker was going to come out next month in September. And even with that now being moved to November, it does sort of make it a bit more crowded, but I guess they would have tried to let's just say, okay, wow, there's just too much stuff. I guess they would have tried to fit it into November. To me, though, Avowed does kind of look like the game right now that would get the Titanfall 2 treatment where people just would kind of look past it just because so much stuff was around. It would be between Call of Duty and Indiana Jones. 2 games that are probably just being looked at a lot more than Avowed right now.
Okay, but what's to say that's not going to be a situation in February?
That's a good point. That is true. We don't really know what's coming out. Like someone mentioned Monster Hunter Wilds. What if they just said February 18th? What if Monster Hunter Wilds comes out like 3 days before it or something?
That's going to be the key thing, right? Like when February rolls around, they're either going to ship the game and it's going to be really, really good, or it's going to be an absolute buggy mess, or they're going to push the game, right? It's going to be one of those 3 things that happens. If 2 of those things happen, right, we know that Xbox was not being honest with us, that they did push the game because it still needed more time, not for marketing reasons. I'm hopeful that the game will be ready, but again, we just have to wait and see with this one.
I mean, when you delay it like this, there's more pressure. We expect it now to be in better shape than it would have been. So if it comes out and it's looking real sketchy with that, then that's not great. No, not a good look then. So it's just it's funny to hear Microsoft frame it that way. There's too much stuff coming out, even though
come on,
quieter year for him so far.
And Sean brings up a good point. We're talking about GameStop here. This is not like, oh, it's going to get crushed by Dragon Age or it's going to get crushed by something else. Sorry, did I say GameStop? We're talking about Game Pass here. So,
You're right.
even though, like, I know Nate talked about Dragon Age being, the game that would be the game that they really want to market at the end of this year, but that's not Game Pass, right? That's just, is that coming out on Game Pass, Dragon Age? I don't think so, right?
It's not. No, I think they have the marketing for it.
So, I mean, why wouldn't you stack everything on Game Pass when the game's ready to launch? So that's the thing that I just have trouble kind of, putting my head around.
Yeah, that's February. So if it was coming out in November, like a 3 or 4 month delay, I guess we can chalk it up to. But to me now, Indiana Jones, December release.
Why would you release Indiana Jones in December? December is the month where games go to die. Right?
So would you put it in November?
I would hope that this is a November game, that Indiana Jones is a early November game, or maybe, a week before Thanksgiving timeframe, potentially, right?
Well, Stalker 2. So this is interesting, MVG, because, so Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is October 25th. I believe Stalker 2 is that 3rd week in November. And the Flight Simulator is the 19th.
Oh my God! Call of Duty.
Educate this man.
Call of Duty people don't give a fuck about Stalker.
No. Stalker is Fallout.
Games.
Like Stalker's a Fallout style.
Stalker people don't give a fuck about Flight Simulator. Like none of these games like intermingle. If you want to make a case for Dragon Age, you can make that case. Microsoft has the marketing for it. Kind of similar games. A lot of people are kind of turned off by the new Dragon Age game though, because of kind of how different it is from previous entries. At the end of the day, this is still your first party game. That's all it should matter. That should matter the most to you, is putting your first party games out there, not some DLC, not some games that have no correlation to fan bases being similar. Like I feel like Avowed is different enough from all of those games that you just said. Throw in Indiana Jones. Once again, we're talking about Game Pass here. A game doesn't have to sell 1 billion copies on day one to be successful, at least according to Microsoft with Game Pass. You just want people to play it.
Have you heard? Hold on. Have you ever heard of a game that was delayed for marketing reasons? Like, has that happened before?
There's too much stuff. Holy shit. We haven't
serious.
had games in like 10 years, but
Dude,
we got too much
marketing.
I'm being serious. Like,
purposes?
has there ever been a press release from a publisher where they've said, "Hey, the game is planned to come out, but for marketing reasons, strategic reasons, we're just going to bump it a few months."
Yes,
there was one.
There
it was actually kind of recent.
I actually,
it was in October.
Already came to my mind. What's that?
There was one that happened like two Octobers ago or something. Where
I'm gonna say Advance Wars.
Oh no, yeah.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
I mean, they're not gonna want to market that thing.
God, there was one that got pushed like 2 weeks because it was like a smaller game and there was a bigger game coming out at the same day. They just decided to delay it. This was recent too. And they even said that that's why they were doing it.
Oh, I remember the Final Fantasy 16 DLC. They were like, "We're gonna push this around Elden Ring," and he said it on stage.
Yeah.
It was like we want to play, or no, it was the Final Fantasy 14 expansion. They're like, we want to push this out so you guys have a chance to play Elden Ring DLC or something.
Someone in the chat saying Prince of Persia, the new one. I mean, you could make a case for that, but the difference there is Avowed was dated. You know, like they said that they were ready to go with this game. Prince of Persia. I mean, we never had a date for that.
They accidentally dated Avowed in November, I think, at one point, and they had to pull that down. If you remember that, so that I feel like they were ready to roll with this thing in November.
Chat's saying Alan Wake. And how did Alan Wake 2 do with that delay? Can anyone remind me? Can anyone inform me of that?
Yeah,
they got to do a musical on stage.
I'm not trying to be like a smart ass or anything. I just want to know, like, I feel like this is the first time this has happened. Like that a big publisher's come out and said, we have too many games, so we're going to just delay this a little bit just to clear the backlog a bit and make room for it next year.
So I am trying to figure out. So let's think about this for a second. Where would you place Indiana Jones right now if December? Because I was actually thinking